Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. President Moon Jae-in is set to rack up some serious air miles. He's due to depart for a 9-day multi-nation tour across Europe. He'll be explaining his North Korea policies and sitting down with Pope Francis. A bloodbath on global financial markets. The Dow slumps for the second straight session, and South Korean markets are slammed as well. The KOSPI suffering its largest daily drop in almost 7 years. We'll tell you how the KOSPI and KOSDAQ started today. Plus, the gloomy prospects remain for job seekers in South Korea, but there could be some optimism on the horizon. We have the latest on the government's employment figures for September. So we start with the spreading market tailspin that's giving investors cause for concern. Financial markets around the world took a battering for a second straight day on Thursday as the mass sell-off continued. The bloodbath started in Europe and spread to the United States later in the day. After a wild couple of days, the Dow Jones Industrial Average has now shed more than 1,000 points in just 48 hours. Lee-Seung-jae starts us off.
Markets continued to plummet on both sides of the Atlantic on Thursday. In London, the FTSE 100 shed close to 2%. Germany's DAX finished down close to 1.5%. While France's CAC 40 lost 1.9%. The Pan-European Stock 600 shed close to 2%, with financial services and oil and gas stocks leading the losses. A dramatic sell-off on Wall Street a day earlier prompted the European benchmark to fall to its lowest level in more than 21 months. The tumble comes on the back of heightened fears about global economic growth and rising interest rates. After flirting with gains early in the day, U.S. markets saw another day of dramatic losses on Thursday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average tumbled more than 2%. The tech-heavy Nasdaq ended the day down 1.25%. The S&P 500 didn't fare any better, losing more than 2%. Stocks have been stuck in the red because investors are growing increasingly concerned over rising interest rates. As the Federal Reserve raises rates to prevent what it says would be runaway inflation, investors have been getting out of bonds, driving down their price and driving up their yields. In turn, the return on bonds has become competitive against some stocks, especially risky tech stocks. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump launched another criticism against the Federal Reserve on Thursday, calling the Fed's interest rate increase a ridiculous policy that was making it more expensive for his administration to finance its escalating deficits. Lee-Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, following a sharp decline on Thursday over jitters on Wall Street, Korea's benchmark KOSPI opened slightly higher at market open on this Friday at 2,131.66. The main bourse closed at the lowest level seen this year in the previous session, falling under 2,130 points due to rising trade tensions between China and the US and contagion fears in emerging markets. Korea's tech-heavy junior KOSDAQ index opened at 704.72, down 0.4% from Thursday's close. South Korea's jobless rate stood at 3.6% last month, which is a 0.3 percentage point increase from the same period last year. Data by Statistics Korea shows 45,000 people were newly employed in September, with the total number of people in the workforce tallied at over 27 million. The health and social services sectors accounted for most of the job gains, followed by telecommunications as well as farming and fisheries. The number of newly employed people in the rental services, wholesale and retail sectors, as well as lodging and food industries dropped on year last month. President Moon Jae-in's long swing through Europe gets underway on Saturday. The focus will be on updating European nations on Seoul's diplomacy related to North Korea. For more on the president's schedule, our presidential office correspondent Shin Se-min reports.
President Moon Jae-in will be leaving on a 9-day trip to Europe with the objective of keeping his European counterparts in the loop on the fast-evolving peace project on the Korean Peninsula.
President Moon will be explaining the positive developments happening on the Korean Peninsula, including the respective summits between the two Koreas and the U.S., while expressing gratitude for EU member nations' support for peace in the region.
With that goal in mind, the president will be on a state visit to France for 4 days from the 13th. His schedule there includes a summit with the French president, as well as a friendly cultural event with Koreans living abroad and some French Hallyu enthusiasts. Among the performers at the event will be the record-setting K-pop sensation BTS. From the 16th, the president will be in Rome, holding summits with the Italian president and prime minister, to be followed by a highly anticipated meeting with Pope Francis, where the discussion of peace on the Korean Peninsula is likely to reach its peak. President Moon will be passing on to the pontiff an invitation to Pyongyang from North Korea's Kim Jong-un, who had reportedly told the president that he would ardently welcome the Pope should he visit the regime. And during his stay there, the president will also participate in a special Mass for Peace on the Korean Peninsula at St. Peter's Basilica, presided over by the Cardinal Secretary of State, Pietro Parolin. Then comes a 2-day stay in Brussels, where President Moon will be attending the Asia-Europe meeting, or ASEM, where he will address European nations on his administration's plans to plant the seeds of peace in the region. Finally, at the last destination of his Europe trip, the president will land in Copenhagen on the 19th for the P4G Copenhagen Summit, where he will speak about the Global Coalition on Sustainable Development. He will then arrive back home on Sunday, the 21st. The president's tight schedule covers a comprehensive set of issues, from North Korea to new industries and even sustainable development. But the presidential office underlines that the most pressing topic of all is again connecting with Europe and advancing the new order of peace and stability on the divided peninsula. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, Thursday was day 2 of the National Assembly's annual audit of the government. The Parliament's standing committees are inspecting government bodies in their respective areas. Up for debate, the possibility of Seoul lifting sanctions, some sanctions anyway, on North Korea, and the Moon administration's economic policies. Kim Min-ji reports.
The idea of the South Korean government lifting its sanctions on North Korea stirred controversy during the audit of the Unification Ministry on Thursday, with rival parties expounding very different views. The ruling party said the sanctions do need to be eased in light of the recent reconciliatory mood, and that the government needs to step up efforts to persuade the international community.
To boost inter-Korean relations, don't you think South Korea at least should be urging the United Nations to ease or lift sanctions so that denuclearization can be sped up?
At this moment in time, we feel that it's too early for that. We will need to consider the North Korea-US summit as well as progress towards denuclearization.
The opposition argued the sanction relief can only come after denuclearization, and that the comments by U.S. President Donald Trump that Seoul needs approval from Washington to lift sanctions is a warning to the government for straying from that line. Another issue up for debate was the ratification of the Panmunjom Declaration. While the ruling party said that it's needed to ensure that the agreement has legal grounds to be implemented, even when there is a change in administration, the opposition criticized the government for not revealing the exact price tag that the people will have to shoulder, especially as the plans to modernize railroads requires the moving of a military base on the northern side.
The government needs to be precise about how much this all costs and whether it plans to move the military base using taxpayer money.
Such discussions have not taken place. We have not paid anything for the moving of a base, and even if we carry out the projects, that is something the North should take care of.
On the Labour Committee, the parties argued about the government's minimum wage hike. The opposition bloc claimed that the government's policies have caused a crisis in the job market, pointing out the decline in new jobs added, while the ruling party said structural issues are to blame. A hotly contested issue at the Industry Committee was the government's drive for nuclear-free energy. The ruling party said that it's in line with the global trend, while the opposition raised concerns that it could lead to a surge in electricity costs. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, President Moon Jae-in delivered a speech on Thursday at the 2018 International Fleet Review, which is ongoing on the country's southern Jeju island, and he stressed the need of a strong military in opening an era of peace and delivered a message to island residents who opposed the construction of a new naval base there. Hwang Ho-jun with the details.
The South Korean president addressed the navies of 47 other countries, sending them a message of encouragement. He was speaking on board the president's official naval ship, the Int'l, a landing vessel named after a famous landmark on Jeju Island.
그러나 세계의 해군은 공존과 협력의 지혜를 키워왔습니다. 함께 새로운 도전에 맞섰습니다. 공동의 노력으로 평화를 가져왔습니다.
The International Fleet Review was held at the Jeju Civilian Military Complex Port, or Jeju Naval Base, situated near Gangjong Village on Jeju's southern coast. As stated in the event's slogan, Jeju where peace starts, President Moon reiterated that Seoul and Pyongyang have declared an end to military confrontation and have begun their journey to peace, and that such peace can only be maintained through a strong military.
나는 대한민국 해군이 한반도의 평화를 넘어 동북아와 세계 평화에 기여할 수 있도록 더욱 강하게 만들어 나갈 것입니다.
In fact, President Moon was looking to make peace more locally as well.
제주도에 해군 기지가 건설되면서 제주도민들이 겪게 된 아픔을 깊이 위로합니다. 강정마을 주민들의 고통과 상처를 치유하는 데에도 최선을 다하겠습니다.
Many were arrested in protest during the base's construction, some arguing that the base would have a negative impact on the environment, and others insisting the project was pushed ahead by the U.S. to deter China rather than by South Korea to enhance its own defense. During Thursday's press briefing, the Blue House spokesperson emphasized that President Moon has always wanted to address the pain and conflict of the Jeju residents, which is why he decided to go to Jeju for the event in person. Soon after the fleet review, President Moon held a separate meeting with the village residents to offer them some words of consolation. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
So, as you could see there, the 2018 Jeju International Fleet Review was quite the spectacle, featuring nearly 40 warships and drawing thousands of eager spectators. Our Kan Hyung-woo has more of the highlights.
With 5 maritime patrol aircraft and naval helicopters leading the way, more than a dozen warships in a line formation sailed towards the flagship. For the main event of the 2018 Jeju International Fleet Review, the South Korean Navy held 2 fleet inspections off the southern coast of Jeju Island. The first comprised of domestic warships, and the second review showcased an international fleet of vessels.
The South Korean Navy decided to hold the nation's third International Fleet Review on Jeju Island for the first time, as the event provides a venue for festivity the citizens and world navies can enjoy together.
After domestic warships and submarines passed by the flagship, the South Korean Navy's underwater demolition team showed off their maritime infiltration skills by jumping off an aircraft from high altitude into the operation area at sea. A total of 24 South Korean warships and 15 vessels from 10 different countries, including the United States Navy's nuclear-powered aircraft carrier Ronald Reagan, took part in Thursday's landmark event. Japan decided not to participate in the fleet review amid a dispute over its naval forces' plan to fly the controversial Rising Sun flag, which is seen in Korea as a symbol of Japan's imperialistic past and its war crimes. China also canceled its plan to send a warship a day before the event without giving any detailed explanations. This year's International Fleet Review showed the South Korean Navy's battle readiness and its strong ties with its allies. Kan Hyung-woo, Arirang News, Jeju.
Now, US President Donald Trump has reaffirmed that the United States has a good relationship with North Korea, adding there's been, quote, no missiles, no testing, no nuclear testing, know nothing. In an interview with Fox News on Thursday, President Trump said what could have turned into a war is now a good relationship. President Trump also praised Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on his work dealing with North Korea, adding that he's been a star. Now, as the trade war between the US and China escalates, President Trump has warned there's a lot more he could do to hurt China's economy. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Noah Aram. So Aram, he's extremely famous for digging his heels in, and as usual, President Trump is showing zero sign of backing down on this issue.
That's right, Mark. In an interview on Fox News on Thursday, President Trump praised his tariffs on Chinese imports. He said they've had a, quote, big impact in damaging China's economy, which he claimed has gone down substantially. Washington has so far imposed tariffs on $250 million worth of Chinese goods, with Beijing retaliating in kind. President Trump added he could do a lot more if he wanted to, but said he would prefer Beijing come to the negotiating table. He said although the Chinese want to negotiate, he does not believe they are ready. He also blamed previous US presidents for allowing China to pursue unfair trade practices and said he had to tell Beijing, quote, it's over. Despite the rhetoric, however, Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are reportedly set to meet soon to try and defuse the tensions. The Wall Street Journal, citing officials in both countries, reported Thursday that the two leaders will meet at the G20 summit in Argentina late next month. The meeting was said to have been pushed by US Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow. Hurricane Michael's assault on the Florida Panhandle in the United States has now left at least 6 people dead, with officials fearing the number could rise. Rescue services are beginning to assess the full impact of the storm, which made landfall on Wednesday. Images show towns left in ruins with empty foundations, toppled trees and ripped out power lines. More than 486,000 customers are said to be without electricity in Florida, Alabama and Georgia. Michael is now a tropical storm and is heading northeast past the Carolinas. Belgium's top football league has been rocked with a corruption scandal, with top clubs and officials accused of fraudulent transfers and match fixing. The Belgian police launched dozens of raids over the past 2 days, searching the offices of 9 clubs as well as a number of houses in Belgium and across Europe. 4 were charged with belonging to a criminal organisation and corruption, while a 5th person was charged with money laundering. According to the Public Prosecutor's Office, the investigation has been ongoing since late last year. Belgium's football governing body said it accepts the probe has to take place, but declined to comment further.
Now, 2018 has been declared the year of books here in Korea. However, fewer and fewer people are sitting down with a good paperback in this age of smartphones and abundant online contents. The government has been trying to reverse this trend with a number of initiatives, however, with little success thus far. Our Won Jung-hwan examines the changes we're seeing in the nation's reading habits.
The season of reading has arrived, but according to statistics, the number of people cozying up with a book in their hands is falling every year. According to the Ministry of Culture's study on the nation's reading habits, almost 4 out of 10 South Korean adults did not read a single book last year. Compared to the results of the same study conducted in 2015, reading declined by 5.4 percentage points, reaching the lowest mark since data started being collected in 1994. Also, people read fewer books than in previous year, with the average number of books read dropping from 9.1 to 8.3 for adults over a 2-year period. And here are some of the reasons why people think the rate is gradually dropping.
Recently, I think reading books has taken a backseat due to various leisure activities and smartphones that are available for us.
Students are busy finding jobs and employees often have no room to read books for pleasure.
The ministry has been pushing to increase the rate by expanding public libraries throughout the nation, fostering an environment that allows people to easily access books. In fact, the number of public libraries has been gradually increasing in the country, posting a rise of nearly 6.5% from 2015 to 2017. But ironically, the average number of adults who use public libraries per year is constantly decreasing, hinting that more public libraries is not the solution to encourage further reading.
The gap in terms of knowledge is growing wider in the country, so the government should first focus on the concept of knowledge welfare. Also, if public libraries expand their roles to serve as multicultural complexes, it will increase the chances of more people visiting and reading more books.
The government last year declared 2018 to be a year of books and set a goal of raising the percentage of the population that has read at least one book a year to 70%. 원정환, Arirang News.
For the first time, a civic activist group here in South Korea has handed out a special peace award to promote better cyberspace etiquette. It's called the Internet Peace Prize, and it's quickly garnering a lot of attention. And this year, 2 people from Japan were honored for their efforts to protect human rights by tackling the serious problem of cyberbullying. Yoon Jung-min reports.
South Korean civil activist group Int'l Internet Peace Movement invented the Internet Peace Prize to promote online etiquette and fight cyberbullying. Some 200 politicians, ambassadors to Korea, and citizens gathered at a university in Seoul on Thursday to commemorate the winners. Just as the Nobel Peace Prize honors those who fight for peace in the real world, the Internet Peace Prize honors those who protect human rights in the virtual space by encouraging positive comments and tackling cyber defamation. This year's prize went to Kawasaki Network of Citizens Against Hate Speech, a Japanese non-governmental organization, and Ken Ogiso from Japan, an advocate for internet etiquette. The Kawasaki Network comprises of 165 human rights organizations. It has been fighting against hate speech by Japanese far-right activists. It also monitors discrimination on social media and gives lectures on cyberspace ethics. The other laureate, Mr. Ogiso, has given more than 2,000 lectures on communication ethics to some 400,000 people in Japan.
Hate speech is hard to punish without proper regulation. We will keep working to eradicate hate speech by pushing for a human rights ordinance that would ban those words in the city of Kawasaki.
Hate speech, especially targeting foreigners and minorities, is a serious crime that infringes on human rights. I believe that the Internet Peace Prize, which symbolizes encouragement and compliment, will contribute to the creation of a peaceful global village.
Founded in 2007, the Int'l Foundation promotes a campaign of online peace. More than 7,000 schools and organizations in Korea are joining the movement along with politicians and citizens worldwide. The Int'l movement aims to help victims of cyberbullying overcome the psychological damage they have suffered. It also hopes this year's award can further promote human rights and mutual respect in cyberspace. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Good morning. Seoul saw its coldest morning temperatures of the season, and the capital saw its first frost this morning. That's 19 days earlier than last year. Daily highs, though, will rise slightly higher than yesterday, and fine autumn skies will continue to dominate most parts of the country. Bigger temperature gaps are in store of nearly 15 degrees, and highs will range between 17 to 19 degrees Celsius this afternoon. The autumn chill will persist, especially in the mornings, so expect big temperature gaps for the time being. Also dress accordingly if you plan to head out to enjoy the brilliant fall foliage this weekend, because we are expecting some chilly temperatures. And Seoul is yet to be covered by falling leaves, but mountainous regions in Gangwon-do province are already blanketed with vibrant autumn colors. Cool conditions accelerate the changing of colors, so based on the recent temperature drops we've had, soon the entire nation will be covered in deep reds, browns, and oranges. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Friday morning here in Seoul. Please stay tuned to Arirang TV. Lots more coming up. We also have our next newscast at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. But if we don't see you, have a wonderful weekend. Until next time, goodbye.
Mukbang is all the rage these